this is Lisa.
And this is Joe.
And welcome to your cheap date for January 6th, 2007.
All right. Well, here we are with an actual real live cheap date show.
Not a cheap update. That was tough saying 2007.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm ready for 2007.
Are you writing 2006 on your checks and everything?
I've only written 2 checks.
Yes. And
I got them right.
Okay.
So far, I'm okay.
So 2007 is looking good for you so far?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tell the people where we ate for our very first meal of 2007.
The first meal of 2007
Yeah.
took place at about 12:50 a.m. on January 1st
Mm-hmm.
at White Castle. Well, we didn't eat at White Castle. That would be trashy. We drove through and took it back to our hotel room and watched the tail end of the VH1 something or other.
A tribute to Kiss.
That's right. That's right. That super group with Ace Frehley. Ugh.
I didn't
Like
realize,
a
and
strange dream.
I'm not up on my Kiss, but I didn't realize that Ace Frehley and Peter Criss aren't even in Kiss anymore, and they got 2 other guys wearing the same makeup being them.
That's a little creepy, don't you think?
Yeah, because I think there was a time when there was another guy who, when Ace Frehley was kicked out or whatever before, and they got another guy in there who had a different makeup entirely.
You were saying that. I don't know,
Yeah,
but I
whatever.
haven't followed the Kiss progression.
I've never been a big Kiss fan, although Lisa recommended we watch Detroit Rock City the other night.
Yeah, speaking of Kiss.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
About these kids in Ohio who go to a Kiss concert in Detroit, and the
Hilarity ensues.
Yeah, the merry mayhem. And the soundtrack, it takes place in 1978, so the soundtrack to this was like every party I ever went to in high school. So if you're of my generation and you're looking for a movie that captures that era,
Yeah, it's not very much talked about, but it's a little bit in the same vein as Dazed and Confused, which is to say very appealing to kids who are that age now.
or I imagine, I never watched that 70s show.
You know what? That 70s show was more like a contemporary teen thing, only they had retro clothes.
So it's kind of like the latter days of Happy Days.
I guess so,
That
yeah.
ostensibly took place in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah,
only
but
it
like you
was-
really don't even think about that
Yeah,
with that
okay.
70s show, which I love, but it's just not very 70s.
So anyway, Detroit Rock City gets a recommendation, and I followed it up with watching
And White Castle does not.
White Castle. Yeah, an auspicious start to 2007. Oh gosh, you know what that means?
Breakfast.
That's right. It's time for breakfast.
So what are we having for breakfast, Joe?
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to go out for our cheap date this week. This
We're
time,
not.
no ma'am. This time we're staying at home, and I'm going to make the most important meal of the day.
Breakfast?
Breakfast. That's right. Now, you want to describe what breakfast is like around here? Like once every 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, yeah. 5 days of the week, it occurs in the dark, and it involves me putting a can of pop into my coat pocket and then stumbling out the door.
Okay.
Or a Slim Fast shake.
Right.
Which I think is an excellent breakfast, actually. But on weekends, when we can stay home until after the sun comes up,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is not something anyone should ever not be able to do, it's quite a production. It's not that we make a really involved meal. It's just that it's so... we can go so long without cooking at home sometimes. But breakfast is the one meal that we always end up eating together.
Right. And typically together meaning with the kids and everybody. Right. Now, there are a few other things. And as we talk about recipes and other things going forward on the show, you'll hear about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided we're going to mix it up. It's going to be dining out and eating in. So you're going to get lots and lots of tips from us now. So
This has nothing to do with our suffering budget.
or our impending nuptials that have to be paid for somehow.
Or our expanding waistlines.
So,
Anywho.
any old who, when the kids are over here, sometimes, and it's typically on Sundays, because Saturday we usually wind up running around going to basketball games and heaven knows what else. So we're talking breakfast on a Sunday morning, and it's usually quite the production. Well, quite the production in a very reasonable way. Let's say that.
Yes. Well, there are 3 staples of breakfast here.
Okay.
Everybody wants bacon.
Right.
The bacon rarely makes it to the table.
That's true.
I've noticed. Even if you put it on top of the refrigerator, it gets stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I used to think that the only way to make bacon was in a big, heavy frying pan.
Lisa's waving.
Preferably cast iron.
Lisa's waving a big frying pan at me right now.
You cut off half an inch of lard, put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't turn out like a really good.
I was hoping for it to make a noise.
It just sounds like you're.
Lisa practicing being a wife. What? You know what time it is? There. That was the frying pan hitting the floor.
Your poor downstairs neighbors. Anyway, I used to think that was the only way to cook bacon. In heavy oil, then you save the bacon grease to scramble the eggs in it.
Right.
You know what? It's romantic. It sounds like fun. It is fun, but it's not necessary.
Right.
Joe has introduced me to a wondrous new way of cooking bacon.
And we'll talk about, and the context for this is the fact that when I became a single parent, I realized that expedience in cleanup is a very, very big and important thing.
Yes, I would agree.
So I've heard methods of doing bacon in the microwave. We'll let you get your collective gasp out there. But there's a way of doing it in the microwave that involves almost no cleanup. And essentially what it involves is you take your plate, you put 4 or 5 slices, rashes of bacon on the paper plate. Typically,
this
I do
is bacon,
4.
Not Canadian bacon.
Right, bacon. And typically we go for the low sodium brands, not the thick cut. The thick cut is a slightly different operation, which we won't go into right now. But typically the standard sliced low sodium bacon.
Just your average Oscar Mayer.
4 slices on a plate. You put some paper towels down. Put a paper towel on the plate, put the bacon on the paper towel, put another thing of paper towel on top of it, and then you kind of wrap it around and tuck it under so that the whole thing is a self-contained unit. You take that, you stick it in the microwave in my microwave, and one of the keys here is to know your equipment. Know your stove, know your stove, know your pans, know your
Sounds
microwave.
like a safety pamphlet.
Know your equipment.
MSDS.
My microwave, 4 minutes and 50 seconds makes perfect. Seriously, you may scoff, you may laugh. Perfect bacon every time. And what we do is then you tear off the first piece of paper towel, you take off the bacon that's in there, you put that on another piece of paper towel just to dry, and the serving plate, which, as Lisa said, winds up on top of the refrigerator and it still has little hands grabbing at it anyway. That produces bacon which is flat, pretty oil-free, I would say, pretty grease-free, and
crisp.
And crisp. So that's exactly, and the cool thing about that is I've also made bacon that way and have crumbled it up in salads and whatnot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
that dry.
It's that dry, but it's not like bacon jerky, would you say?
Well, no, I've never had bacon that went jerky. I have had bacon. I mean, if you overcook bacon, it gets a little too crunchy.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's typically how I make bacon, and it's kind of a time-consuming process. But if you start that before you start the rest of the breakfast, you can actually time it so everything comes out at the same time. And ultimately, all you have to clean up is the one plate that you've done the cooking on. Got to be careful because that plate gets really, really hot because all the grease collects on there. So got to make sure that you use tongs or a mitt or something like that.
An oven mitt, also known as a pot holder.
Some of us in this house have a difficulty remembering that when things are hot, you need some sort of pot holder to hold them.
pot holder so named because wow.
Okay. So anyway, that's the bacon. Typically, when I start that,
have your bacon going.
I got my bacon going. Now, the kids like eggs in different ways. There are tricks to making scrambled. There's tricks to making. Rebecca likes hers over easy.
Ooh,
and I figured out how to do it. That is a tough one to do, but if you know your equipment and you got the right pan and you know your stove and the temperatures, you're good with that. So
also, can I make a plug here for organic eggs? If you have yolk breakage problems, organic eggs have much tougher yolks. Not tougher when you eat them, but tougher meaning they don't break as easily.
Yes. So it's actually easier to do a sunny side up or an over easy, theoretically?
Much.
A good point.
Not theoretically. This
In
is my
practice.
This is my I've never heard this. It's my personal experience.
Oh, very good. Empirical evidence.
Okay, I have read it too.
Okay.
But I noticed it first and then read it.
Right. Now.
So I got you coming and going, people. Don't call me and tell me it's not true.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Moving on.
I'm no longer waving the pan, but I would be.
Remember the story a few shows ago where we were talking about Lisa standing in the kitchen waving a spoon saying, "Does everybody need to be in here?"
You know what? How big is your kitchen? Like 12 by 8?
Yeah, you can fit 2 adults in there doing something, and that's about it.
Yeah, and how many people do we have in there?
Typically 4.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 2 adults and 2 teens.
40 little fingers grabbing for tastes and bites and touching hot things.
Going, ow, Lise! Oops. What was that? Never mind. It's all under control. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about omelets. What can we say about omelets? Comes from the French.
Oh, it comes from
Omelette.
the French.
Omelette du fromage. In fact, the omelette du fromage is my favorite thing to make because it's something that I've finally perfected in my own inimitable way.
Inimitable?
No, inimitable.
Inimitable.
I'm sure
Sorry.
it's imitable, actually, to be honest with you. But anyway, there are different schools of thought on how people like to make their omelet mixture. Some people like to make egg. They take a couple of eggs, they mix it with some milk or half and half or something like that, scramble it up, and then put that in there. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of going pure and simple, and I just take 3, typically large or extra large eggs and scramble them up. Then I take my pan. Now, my favorite pan to do this in is, and this is not an ad, although it would be really cool if these guys wanted to sponsor us, we got this at IKEA. It's the stainless steel IKEA 365 Plus collection. It's a 9-inch Teflon pan. Don't write in and tell us about the benefits of cast iron. We know cast iron is wonderful. We're talking Teflon because we like using it this way.
Actually, can I contradict you completely? Aside from...
At least you didn't wait until after the wedding.
Aside from... we'll see about that. Aside from the, conspiracy theory health concerns about Teflon, which scrapes off and winds up in your food, supposedly, whatever.
Well, technically I've had that happen. But
I know. Aside from that, I would be interested to know what the benefit to cast iron is, because I have used cast iron skillets only infrequently. I've never owned one. But I have great luck with good Teflon cookware. And you know what? If somebody has a reasonable case to make against it, okay. I think it just takes a long time to heat up and a long time to cool down.
You mean a case for it?
That's what I meant, yes,
Yeah.
A case for it.
We don't need the case against Teflon. We know the case against Teflon.
Right. Right. The case for cast iron would be interesting to me.
The compelling reasons for it.
Also, I like Teflon because you don't have to use a lot of grease or oil.
Right.
Now, you do in your omelets. We'll get to that in a sec.
Right.
But when I scramble 2 eggs for myself, I don't care that there's no bacon fat in that. Some people are really attached to certain types of fats, and I'm just not.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But anyway.
So what I do is I have my 9-inch IKEA
Teflon skillet.
I'll say the word IKEA one more time because maybe they're listening and we'll get a call from Stockholm saying, "Yeah, we'd like
From Ingemar.
to sponsor you." Okay, so take this. The other key is to know your equipment, know your stove. I actually happen to know the setting on my stove where this thing heats up perfectly. Now, the cool thing about this pan, as I said, it's stainless steel. And it's got a good, would you say that's like a half inch or almost?
It's very heavy. Yeah,
like a
it's
3/4
half
inch steel bottom on it. So it's very thick. So when this thing heats up, it heats up and it retains the heat very, very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, when you turn the heat up and you cool it down, it also adjusts accordingly relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I take that, once it's heated up, I take probably maybe a quarter, I take a little, about the size of a pat of butter when you go to a restaurant. You get a pat of butter. Well, okay.
You
maybe
take
that,
a
or maybe
pat-sized pat of butter. Okay, Joe.
I know where I'm going with this. Cut me some slack.
I know.
So I put that in there. I get that all, even though it's a Teflon pan, you're not using the butter this time for non-stick purposes. You're using it for flavor. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. I think language is the most important thing. So you get the butter in there, you get it melted. Get it when it melts. Get it before it starts to scorch. Get it before it starts turning brown. Then I take my egg mixture, pour it in there, and then I let it sit there and I cook. It should bubble up a little bit. And what you want to do is you want to keep an eye on it. You want to keep an eye around the edges of it to see when it starts to get cooked and dry around the edge. Before it gets to the point where it's really, really brown and whatnot, what you can do, and I learned this from actually the cooks that ran the cafeteria at the place I used to work. You take the pan, you tilt it up a little bit, and then you push some of the mixture. You push the cooking egg mixture in, and then you tilt the pan back so that some of the stuff that's still wet falls into that spot that you've just pushed and cleared. Mm-hmm. And then you let that cook for a while. Keep an eye on it the whole time. Once you see that it's starting to dry around the edges, you take your turner and you get in there. And I've seen guys do this with, like a spatula, like a rubber spatula. I haven't perfected that yet. I always wind up with,
you can't just flip the pan and
right. Well, I've done that though too. The key is you don't want to make that mixture too thin across the bottom of your pan, because then you'll have stuff all over the place. You want to have it as a nice cohesive disc of egg, if that makes sense.
Disc of egg.
Disc of egg. The disc of egg.
Maybe this should be a video podcast.
Perhaps we should do this as a video podcast. Stop it right now. Get the camera. So anyway, once you get it all done like that, you take your turner, get underneath it, and then in one, as fast as you can do it, one fast, strong motion, zip, flip over, done. Get it flipped over on the other side. It's something that takes a little bit of practice, but it can be done.
So, how many omelets did you have to make before you got it right?
Hundreds. No, literally. Surprisingly, I've been making omelets for many years, but once I got this pan about, 6 months ago, I started doing it in this, and everything just kind of started clicking together. So, I probably made maybe 3 or 4 omelets in this pan before I really realized how to actually do it. So now it's flipped over, and the side that hadn't cooked yet is on the bottom. At this point, you can throw in stuff like cheese. My personal preference was the 2-year-old cheddar that came in the shape of a cow that you got from your brother from Wisconsin. It was basically cheddar that was in the shape of a cow, and then it had a wax rind around it, so you had to peel the rind away and then grate the cheese. And I usually use a finer grating for that. I don't use so
it'll melt faster.
It'll melt, right, it melts faster. So you can do that, throw that in there, and then fold the omelet over with the cheese inside, cook it for about 45 seconds to a minute on one side, flip it over 45 to the other, and then you're done. Put it on a plate, you're done. Your bacon, which you've been doing all this time, is also done, and there you go.
Easy as pie.
Exactly. Now, there are those there are those people who would like to have, sometimes you can put onions, green peppers, mushrooms, various other things. The one school of thought is to take those, put those in the pan first with a little bit of butter, get those cooked up a little bit, and then put your mixture in all over the vegetables. So then the vegetables are in the omelet, and then do the cheese thing like I just described, and then fold it over and cook it that way.
I guess it would depend on how crisp you want your, like if you were using chopped onion, it would depend on how crisp you wanted it to be.
Or scallions.
Scallions don't really get crisp.
Well, they're basically green onions. You know, most people call them green onions, but they're...
I know.
Sorry. The one thing which I haven't tried yet, which I do want to try, especially since we have the cool Mexican grocery over here, is I want to get some chorizo.
Oh.
And I want to try cooking that up and doing this mixture again. So I'll have a report in the near future on a chorizo omelet as well. The other thing is that the cheese that they sell, the quesadilla cheese that we buy, that goes with our fajita night, that stuff seems to have a higher melting temperature. That doesn't seem to melt as quickly as cheddar and that sort of thing.
Oh, a nice oily cheddar.
Yeah.
It is. It's a little bit more, not to criticize, but it's a little more rubbery.
Yeah. It's a good way of describing it.
Maybe it's a little more skin.
Right.
I don't know.
Now, when you put your omelet on the plate, you can serve it with. Now, you had mentioned this before. You prefer the salt and pepper at the front end.
I prefer to mix in some salt and pepper, sometimes milk, but not necessarily. But definitely a little salt and pepper into the egg mixture. That way you get the saltiness and pepperiness in every bite. If you just sprinkle salt and pepper on top, then you have like bland egg with salt on top of it.
Good point.
But you salt and pepper to taste.
Right. Salt and pepper to taste, or Tabasco to taste.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So now you have your omelet and you've got your bacon.
So we got our protein covered.
Right. Now, breakfast would not be complete without carbs.
Oodles and oodles of carbs.
Now, on future shows, we'll be telling you about waffles. We'll be telling you about French toast. We have all kinds of recipes along those lines. Lisa has an awesome muffin recipe that she's going to be sharing in the near future. We found a great pancake mix. This is an amazing... We've been looking because Lisa's a big fan of buckwheat pancakes.
Yes.
And...
Not all buckwheat pancakes, but certain buckwheat pancakes.
Right.
The thing is, I feel much better about eating a couple pancakes, even with some syrup, if they're whole wheat pancakes.
So we found, actually at Whole Foods and also at the Meijer grocery store chain, we found... And
Jewel has some of these. Bob's Red Mill 10-grain pancake and waffle mix.
Mm-hmm. We've not made the waffles with these, but we have made the pancakes.
Right. And they have a bunch of pancake recipes on the back here. Cheese pancakes, apple pancakes with applesauce, ham and cheese pancakes, clam pancakes.
Clam cakes.
Clam cakes. Like some of the same things you can do with omelets, you can do with pancakes, apparently. Anyway. I like the Bob's Red Mill 10 grain because you get the heartier texture and the darker color of a whole wheat. It's like the difference between white bread and whole wheat bread.
Mm-hmm.
A little heartier texture, a little darker in color, but we tried some buckwheat and buckwheat mixes and other whole grain mixes that came out tasting very sawdusty.
Yeah.
Or like too hearty.
Yeah.
Meaning too coarse.
Right. This is very hearty, but it's not what am I looking for? It's not like eating sawdust or pencil shavings.
Right. Some of them did have a very dry, dusty flavor or were too coarse, and this is perfect. Now, Bob recommends of course it's pancake mix, it's not rocket science. Bob recommends that you beat egg whites and then...
You whip egg whites.
Oh, this is actually for waffles.
No, there's a Bob's preferred method.
Oh, okay, I see. Sorry. Okay,
Quite all right.
Beat a couple egg whites until it's stiff, then blend together the yolks and the mix and some oil and water and whatever else, and then fold that into the egg whites. And you really do get an amazingly fluffy pancake.
You do. And let me tell you something. Folding that is not an easy task.
No.
Because you're used to really beating it, but you got to be gentle.
Right. You don't want to knock the air back out.
But it does make really, really neat, really fluffy pancakes.
Now, I've read the beating egg whites technique in other pancake recipes, too. It's not... I don't read about it a lot, but occasionally, because it does make for a very fluffy and light texture.
Yeah.
So that's basically just a product plug for Bob's Red Mill. I've gotten several products from there and have really liked all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They even make like chocolate cake mix in whole wheat.
Right.
Which
They have semolina flour. We made the homemade bread.
That's right. That's right.
So that was really good.
If you're trying to get more whole grains in your diet, and you should be.
Listen to us. She's going to wave the frying pan again.
Does White Castle have a whole grain bun?
I'm sure it starts off as grain, probably about 3,000 or 4,000
It's
miles
grain,
up the
and then
food
the
chain.
cow eats it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that. And then, so when we take those, serve those on the side, you got your omelet or your eggs, whatever you got. You got your bacon, and then you have your 10-grain pancakes served, of course, with real maple syrup.
Or real maple butter.
Or real maple butter. Oh, that stuff.
Don't even get us started about that.
Yeah. And then if you can actually, if you whip up some butter, that's even better too, because that even adds even more to the effect.
So there's our breakfast.
So there's breakfast. You hungry?
Guaranteed to douse any kind of hangover. No, we don't get hungover.
No, not at all. Not at all. Pas du tout. So continental here. So, so that was our cheap date for today. We, like we said, we made breakfast for you. We hope you enjoyed it.
Now, our schedule is going to be a little bit different going forward.
That is correct.
How often are we going to be producing shows?
The Cheap Date Show will now be coming to you. Lisa's laughing because she thinks she knows I've been dying to say this for months. The Cheap Date Show will now be coming to you fortnightly. So rather than
look it up, don't explain it. Make them look it up. No, every other week.
Every other week we'll be doing a show. And as you can tell, we're expanding this. We're going to be talking about restaurants and recipes now too. So if you have any suggestions in terms of things you'd like us to try or your favorite recipes, some people have already started to talk about their favorite recipes on our blog. Mm-hmm. Please continue with that. If there's anything you'd like us to try out as an experiment in our test kitchens, we'll certainly do that. And actually,
our test kitchen.
Well, we may seriously consider doing another video podcast because some of this stuff would actually go over well. Like perhaps we should even do the omelet on a video cast.
Perhaps we will. Let's not give it all away right here and now.
That's true. So thank you for all the notes that you've sent us, all the comments. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for keeping us in your podcatchers while we enjoyed the holiday season and took the rest of our year off. And now we're back and we're fresh and we're ready to roll.
And we're still not married, but we will be.
We will be. Don't worry. You guys will know. You'll know. Everyone just sit back. Good heavens. Okay, so if people want to get a hold of us, Lisa, how would they go about doing that?
I can't remember.
Telegraph? Smoke signals?
No. dish@cheapdateshow.com. It's like when you forget your locker combination over Christmas break. No, but it comes right back. Come to cheapdateshow.com and check out our blog and leave us comments. Or email us at dish@cheapdateshow.com. Mm-hmm. Or you can call our listener voicemail.
That's right. 206-203-DATE. That's 206-203-3283. Leave a comment and we'll listen to it.
No promises.
Imagine that. Yeah, no promises. Okay. Are we done here?
We're done.
Let these
here.
people go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks again for listening, folks. We will talk to you next time.
Good night.
This podcast is proudly listed at podcastpickle.com.